Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at another one of the new move updates for Season 14 of Go Battle League, and that is Boomburst FLYGON in the Ultra Fantasy Cup. Boomburst is a normal type charge move, and it's definitely a nuke move. It can do 150 base damage, so it's a very powerful move, but it also costs a lot of energy. For the team, I decided to pair it up with a Registeel on the lead and a Giratina Origin save switch, and was able to go on an 8-2 run. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's boomburst some opponents with FLYGON. Hopping to the first match, picking up an incredibly good lead, Registeel into Steelix, and even better, the Steelix is choosing to stay in this matchup. Even if Steelix is running Earthquake, this is an absolutely terrible matchup for Steelix, as Registeel is able to outpace, and these Focus Blasts are going to hurt. Even if they make it to an Earthquake here, Earthquake doesn't KO, so I'm not going to shield the thing in this matchup, and they go for Psychic Fangs, and it looks like they are running Psychic Fangs and Crunch, so this makes it an even worse matchup for my opponent. I'm going to farm up, firing off the Focus Blast. I just want to get rid of the Steelix, because Steelix is very good versus my backline. We'll have to see what they have in the back. They send in Giratina Altered, and I'm going to save switch into my Giratina Origin. Giratina Origin can do quite well against basically the entire meta, due to the fact that ghost damage is not really resisted by a whole lot. I'm going to bait here with the Ominous Wind. Ominous Wind is able to grab a shield from the opponent. I do want to try and grab their final shield, so I will commit the shield on the Dragon Claw, farm up, and make it to the Shadow Ball. This Shadow Ball will deal massive damage if it lands. Opponent is going to burn the final shield. They will get the farm down, but now I can just send in Registeel to absorb all this damage. So whether they're running Shadow Sneak or Ancient Power, Registeel will be able to tank all of this damage, and I've set up FLYGON with a shield advantage in the endgame. Opponent is running Shadow Sneak. They fire off Shadow Sneak number 1, and they're going for charge move number 2. I'm going to let this go. I am not going to be using my final shield on Registeel. Registeel farming up, going for the Zap Cannon. This is going to be resisted, but it will be getting that Giratina low. Giratina gets KO. They have Tapu Fini in the back, and unfortunately, I am stuck with a Dragon type. But the good news for me, this is a Dragon type running Boomburst. FLYGON, Boomburst, big damage onto the Tapu Fini. Tapu Fini has enough for the Moonblast. I will respect it with a shield. I get baited with a Surf. I continue to farm. They make it to another move. This is only a Surf though. This is not the Moonblast. Surf is neutral. It gets me low. FLYGON farming up, making it to Boomburst number 2. This will be taking care of the FLYGON. Down goes FLYGON. We farm down Giratina, and that is a good game. Moving into the next match, picking up an interesting lead, Registeel into Melmetal. Of course, both Pokemon here can hit each other for super effective damage. Melmetal is a lot spammier, but Registeel is going to hit a lot harder. I'm going to bait with a Zap Cannon, trying to grab a shield. Zap Cannon gets no-shielded. I do get the attack drop, but that is a crazy no-shield by my opponent. They fire off the superpower, that's going to land, and then they're going to save switch into a Fairy Wind Slurpuff. This is a bit of an awkward Pokemon for my team, as Slurpuff can have access to Flamethrower, which would hit the Regi for super effective, and Play Rough for my 2 dragons in the back. I'm going to stay in here, fire off the Zap Cannon. Zap Cannon does not debuff this time. I'm going to stay in, force them to throw energy, and then I can send in the Giratina Origin. They fire off the Flamethrower, down goes the Regi. I'm going to send in Giratina. Giratina farming up. Opponent makes it to another move. I will respect the potential Play Rough here. Opponent does go for the Play Rough, and now I don't think I can quite farm down, so I will overfarm and fire off the Ominous Wind to get the KO. Ominous Wind does get rid of the Slurpuff, and I get the boost on Giratina. Let's go. In the back, they have Tapu Fini. Tapu Fini may be a fairy type, but it is not a very effective counter to Giratina Origin. I'm baiting with the Ominous Wind. I'm able to grab a shield. I build up to the Shadow Ball, and I'm baiting again, hoping I can grab the second shield from my opponent. My opponent makes a great read, calling my bait, and I believe this is enough for the Moonblast. I will respect it with a shield. Opponent does full send the Moonblast, and now I should be able to overfarm and fire off the Ominous Wind. Could have farmed up more there. Ominous Wind does get the final shield. Opponent is going to switch into Melmetal. Melmetal going to be firing off a move. Let's see what their coverage move is. They're running the new move, Double Iron Bash. I'm going to farm up, switch into FLYGON on the charge move, and I now have a pretty straightforward win con. Mudshot down with FLYGON, and we'll get to Boomburst that Tapu Fini. Opponent firing off another move. They go for the superpower. That hits harder, but it lowers their defense. Melmetal gets farmed down. We leave with a Boomburst. And yet again, Tapu Fini having a bad day. taken out by the Boom Burst, and that's a good game. Tough lead in the next match, Registeel into Escavalier. Not the matchup I was hoping for. I'm going to stay in with Reggie for a little bit, throw a couple lock-ons, and then safe switch into the Giratina. Escav staying in here, going for a drill run, so they clearly do not have a great answer in the back to a Giratina Origin safe switch. I continue to farm up. They're going to bring in a Giratina Altered, and I'm baiting. I have a massive energy lead here. I'm expecting them to shield, and they do. Giratina farming up and winning CMP over the Giratina Altered. Let's go. Shadow Ball gets the final shield as well. Giratina able to grab both shields on the safe switch, and at this point, I'm just going to let this through. Opponent does undercharge and go for the farm down, but now I can just send in my Registeel to absorb whatever energy they're going to throw at me. Opponent fires off a Dragon Claw, so it looks like they are running Ancient Power on their Giratina, and bad news for them, as being stuck without Shadow Sneak is an absolutely miserable spot for Giratina to be in here. I'm going to fire off the Zap Cannon. Zap Cannon is resisted, lands on the Giratina, and I do get that ever important attack drop. Giratina spamming out Dragon Claw after Dragon Claw. Their switch timer should be up, but they are not switching out. They are firing off Dragon Claw after Dragon Claw, and even though my Registeel's health is starting to get worn down, I'm perfectly fine with staying in here, because I just want to get rid of the Giratina. I actually go for a slight undercharge here, so I can leave with a charge move loaded. This way, I can lock on down, leave with a move to threaten the Escavalier. Dragon Claw lands, they aggressively switch in the Escav. Escav will make it to the drill run. I'm going to commit the shield, fire off a move to get rid of the Escav. Here, I went for the Zap Cannon. Zap Cannon, honestly, could have just focus blasted there. It would have been slightly cheaper and done the same damage. Either way, we get the farm down. It's another Tapu Fini in the back. So many Tapu Finis, and so many Tapu Finis getting boom bursted. Boom burst, big damage onto the Tapu Fini. We've seen this matchup before. Odds are I'm probably getting surf baited, but I will respect it with the shield. It is the surf. Opponent farming up. This is only the surf, so I should be able to live this, and if history holds, I can make the boom burst. I am able to get to the boom burst. This is going to be taking care of the Tapu Fini. Opponent, all they have left is the Giratina. I switch in the Registeel and get the farm down. We've got a mirror lead in the next match, Registeel versus Registeel. I'm going to stay in this matchup to start, although I may eventually look to switch out and try and catch a move onto my Giratina. I'm going for the Focus Blast right off the bat here. Focus Blast does get shielded by my opponent. They shielded, so I'm going to be shielding in return. Opponent actually goes for the Zap Cannon, and they get the attack drop. Not what I was hoping to see. I will be able to outpace since they went for the Zap Cannon, and then I'm going to try and catch their Focus Blast onto Giratina. So I farm up, switch into Giratina, and unfortunately, I don't think I was able to catch, as they were able to fire off the Zap Cannon. I do get debuffed. My opponent now going to send in Tapu Fini. Tapu Fini is going to be met with a Shadow Ball. Unfortunately, this is debuffed, so they can pretty comfortably let this go, and that's exactly what they're going to do. Tapu Fini farming up, firing off a move. I'm going to let this through. It is the Moonblast, and I'm going to get KO'd. However, my Registeel is still very healthy, so I can send in the Registeel. I'm going to go for a Focus Blast and a farm down, because I want to leave this matchup with energy. Ideally, that will give me an energy lead so I can take out their Registeel when they decide to bring it back in. I fire off the Focus Blast, I go for the undercharge, I am going for the farm down, and I get it. I now have the energy lead I'm going to need. In comes a Escavalier. I'm firing off the Zap Cannon. This will do a ton of damage if it lands. Zap Cannon lands, gets the debuff. In comes FLYGON. Opponent is going to send in Registeel. I do live a Focus Blast, so I'm going to let this through here. I tank the Focus Blast. Opponent baits with a triple resisted Zap Cannon. Oh no, and that's going to be game over. I fire off the Dragon Claw. I'm looking for the Mud Shot farm down. FLYGON gets the farm down. Back in comes the Escav, and I am not baiting. Going straight for the Boom Burst. Boom Burst booms the Escav, and that's game over. Picking up a pretty decent lead in the next match, Registeel into Dragonite. Dragonite, of course, does have access to super effective superpower, but in the Ultra League, Registeel tanks this quite well. They are at enough for the superpower. I'm going to call it. Opponent does full send the superpower, staying in the matchup, and they make an incredible catch, catching the Zap Cannon onto their own Reggie. Very nicely done. I'm going to farm up with my Registeel, farm up, switch, and make a catch of my own, catching onto Giratina. Unfortunately, Unfortunately, they did go for the Zap Cannon there. Would have been really fun to catch a Focus Blast, but unfortunately was not in the cards. No baiting here. I'm firing off the Shadow Ball. I want some damage. My opponent commits a shield. That's a bit surprising because this is not a good matchup for Registeel whatsoever. Giratina Origin is honestly an absolute threat on the safe switch. My attack is lowered. Opponent saving the Registeel for later, so that's why they shielded, taking advantage of the desync switch clocks, and now they send in Dragonite to farm down. I have a move on Registeel. Let's use it. Firing off the Zap Cannon into the Dragonite. It KOs. In the back, they have Escavalier, and I'm going to send in FLYGON. FLYGON with a shield advantage can be incredibly deadly. I'm going to let the first move through. Drill Run does do a lot of damage, though. I continue to farm up. I go for the Dragon Claw, and I end up losing CMP. I am trying to bait them because Boom Burst is just absurdly expensive to get to. Firing off this Dragon Claw, hoping the opponent commits the shield, and they do. Continuing to farm up. Opponent sends in the Registeel. I'm going for the resisted Boom Burst. Please let this KO. Boom Burst does not KO the Reggie, and they make it to a move. You've got to be kidding me. I'm just going to let this go, send in my own Registeel, and go for the farm down. They have energy on the Exca. They have to make it to 2 moves, and they cannot. Registeel makes it to the Focus Blast, KOs the Escavalier, and that's game over. Moving into the next match, leading Registeel into Giratina Altered. This is an incredibly slow matchup, but a lead that I am going to be staying in. I want to try and get this Giratina as low as possible and get as many Zap Cannon debuffs as I can before I eventually save switch out into my Giratina Origin. So I tank the first move, I'm farming up, and I am firing off the Zap Cannon. This is resisted, it lands, and I get that ever important attack drop. You love to see it. They're going to be firing off Shadow Sneak after Shadow Sneak in this matchup, but after a couple debuffs add up, these Shadow Sneaks are going to start doing absolutely nothing in terms of damage. Zap Cannon number 2, and we get a second debuff as well. Definitely having some good RNG in this matchup. They go for the Shadow Sneak. That just does an absolutely pathetic amount of damage. They are farming up, firing off another move. I decide I'm going to bank this energy for later and send in my Giratina Origin. In comes Giratina, opponent farming up energy, and now they're going to send in their Kingdra. I'm farming up, and I'm going to bait with the Ominous Wind, trying to get a shield from the Kingdra here. Ominous Wind gets a shield, Kingdra continues to farm. I'm going straight for the Shadow Ball. I baited once, I am not baiting again. Shadow Ball gets double shielded as the opponent is able to farm all the way down. I send in Reggie, and they didn't throw their move here. That was very interesting. They definitely win CMP over Reggie, but they didn't throw their move, and that works out very nicely for me, as now I can just save 2 shields for FLYGON, and hopefully FLYGON can sweep. FLYGON looking for the farm down with a sliver of HP. They make it to the Octazooka. Please don't debuff me. Octazooka does debuff. It's Registeel on the back. I have never missed having Earth Power more than in this moment. I'm debuffed, I only have resisted damage, and I concede the match. Hopping into the final match, leading Registeel into Tapu Fini, incredibly dominant lead. Opponent is going to save switch into Galarian Rapidash, and honestly, this is a pretty cool pick, as I don't have a great answer for this. Galarian Rapidash can hit my entire team for super effective damage. They fire off high horsepower, and I'm going to return fire with the Zap Cannon. Zap Cannon gets the shield. I do get the attack drop, which is what I was looking for. And now, I feel a lot more comfortable tanking high horsepower. I live one at full strength, but if I'm going to no-shield a move, I would rather it be a debuffed one. And now, I'm firing off another Zap Cannon at Rapidash. Zap Cannon gets no-shielded Rapidash, able to hang on, but I'm able to switch out and catch high horsepower onto my Giratina. High horsepower is able to land. Opponent gonna send back in Tapu Fini. Tapu Fini going to be met with a Shadow Ball from the Giratina, but here, I don't trust my counts. I commit a shield. It was only a Surf. I should have trusted my counts. I was like, I think they're just short, but I didn't trust it. I shield what could have only been a Surf, and that's just a massive mistake from me. I fire off the Ominous Wind. Ominous Wind is going to KO. Opponent in the back. They have Lucario, and I should just have this game won now. I'm going to full send the Shadow Ball. Opponent calls a bait. Mud Shot down with FLYGON, and that's game over. And now some final thoughts on Boomburst FLYGON. While it's a move that can do quite a lot of base damage, unfortunately, not being able to hit anything for super effective and not getting the same type attack bonus, I think FLYGON is basically just going to be better off whether you end up running the legacy move of Earth Power or Earthquake, because either way, at the very least, you get to hit something for super effective damage if you run into like a Steel type or a Poison type, for example, and on top of that, getting that same type attack bonus can be key. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.